Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Kapoq's webinar series. I'm Shelby Rothenberg, Director of Customer Success at Kapoq, and I'll be the moderator for today. We have an exciting session lined up to talk about the ins and outs of lifetime value. It's a metric that can be measured for all businesses. Brands offering expansive catalogs and consumables with high repeat purchase rates benefit the most. Our goal today is to help you better understand LTV and the actions you can take to increase LTV and repurchases. We'll start with a few introductions. Both of our guests bring a wealth of knowledge in the Amazon space into this topic, and I'm sure you'll find their insights valuable. Joining us is Zach Fischer and Eric Coates. Welcome. Starting with you, Zach, we'd love a quick intro and background on your role and experience working with Amazon data.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Shelby. And also thanks everyone for joining the call today. My name is Zach Fischer. I'm Director of Data Science at Kapoq. Excited to be here today. And so I work on projects that require complex analysis of data. So varying from things like day parting to unit forecasting to lifetime value. And excited to dig more into lifetime value over the next hour.
Thanks, Zach. Eric, your turn.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Eric Coates, CEO and co-founder of WorkshopAmz. I've personally been in the Amazon space for 10 years now, both in an agency and in-house roles with various brands. More recently started WorkshopAmz, and we are a full-service Amazon agency focusing on SMBs across various categories. Something that is a little bit unique about us that I believe we pioneered was implementing an agile approach to Amazon account management, utilizing sprints and kind of a more focused approach to the channel and how it fits in with the rest of the business as well, not just looking at it in a silo by itself. So yeah, very excited to be here and share what insights I can about LTV.
Love that. Thanks, Eric. For those unfamiliar with Kapoq, Kapoq is an end-to-end operational software solution that supports multi-brand management on Amazon for sellers and vendors. Everything from managing advertising to inventory demand planning and forecasting, content audits and content monitoring. For today's topic, our customer experience capabilities provide review, returns, and of course, customer lifetime value. We have an accounting solution that houses a full P&L, a data connector, powerful analytics. All of these elements I'm describing are interconnected and housed under one roof. So they communicate with one another and they work closely together. For those who are unfamiliar with who we work with clients of all shapes and sizes, enterprise brands, small, medium-sized businesses, agencies, and support marketplaces globally. But enough about us. Let's get started and talk a little bit about today's agenda. So we'll cover a range of topics, starting with some foundational elements, explaining LTV and why it's important to, the history lesson and evolution of where LTV is at, where it's been and where it's at today, some of the nuances, strategies, and actions to increase LTV, some elements in terms of event days and seasonality, and we'll wrap things up with a bit of a conclusion and takeaways with a Q&A as to follow to tie things together. So why don't we get started? So basic introduction and overview of LTV. Zach, when we say LTV or lifetime value, what are we actually talking about?
Yeah, so LTV, it stands for lifetime value, and LTV, it's the expected revenue earned from a customer over the course of their relationship with a brand. And so that's a really simple idea, but I do think it's helpful to keep in mind there are some assumptions that feed into how that's actually calculated. So for example, Amazon's metrics, they have a look back period of 1 year. So that's kind of like a year time value, more so than a lifetime value. And I think that is important to keep in mind. At Kapoq, we do consider all data available, and we'll look back further than 1 year if there is data available. So when you're looking at LTV metrics, I think it's important to have an understanding of the assumptions and the data. And then LTV, it can be analyzed in a number of different ways. So kind of the green graph that we have here, that's going to be breaking down into monthly cohorts. And so basically grouping customers that have the same first order in the same month. We're going to group them into the same cohort. For monthly cohorts, look at the average revenue generated from that cohort of customers. So that's one way that you can analyze LTV. You could also look at LTV by ASIN. That can be really interesting. We'll delve into that more later. in this presentation. And so lots of different ways that you can kind of slice and dice the data. But the basic idea is that LTV, just the total revenue generated by a customer over the lifetime of their relationship with brand.
Yeah. And I'll chime in there too. The difference between the data that Kapoq can get you versus what Amazon's dashboards currently give can actually make a significant difference for particularly companies that aren't like heavy consumable items. So something like electronic accessories, they may have a customer that purchases once every 2 years because they purchase the accessories whenever they upgrade their computer. And you're not actually going to see that in Amazon's data. It'll look like a new customer every time. But with Kapoq, you could actually see that data that, oh, we're actually having customers return 18 months later or 24 months later. And so you can kind of use that to adjust how you understand your LTV and the customers that you have.
Yeah, I think that's great to highlight. If you have kind of longer than a year of repeat purchasing, that's going to stand out. And then also just your LTV numbers, they're kind of going to be deflated from reality. If you have truly more years of data in there, that's going to have the numbers kind of more accurate representation of what they are and also higher. So just something helpful to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely. Beyond 12-month, trailing 12 months, right? There's more out there that is accessible, just might not be available to you in Amazon, and tools like Kapoq likely provide those ranges beyond the 12-month period. Eric, now that we know like LTV is more than just a metric, it's a way of understanding long-term impact and the brand's relationship with customers. What, from your experience, what's important and what do you look for?
Yeah, I think for me, the kind of most important aspect of LTV is how it helps you understand your profitability in a given channel. And if you have a product that is like a CPG product that you're likely to see repeat purchases every month or every other month, that can actually dramatically change kind of your marketing strategy into acquiring those initial customers. And so if you know that your average lifetime value repurchase rate is 5x, then you're going to want to invest more on the front end to acquire that customer, because you may not make as much money on that first sale, but if you're confident they're going to come back and purchase 4 more times, then you can make a lot more money in the long run. On the flip side, if you have an electronics product, then you may need to be more profitable on that first sale and want to invest less on the front end. Understanding your LTV and repurchase frequency makes a significant difference in your customer acquisition strategy.
Yeah, that's something to evaluate, and each category, each brand may be impacted differently.
And if we look at these examples, yeah. So if they have the same average order value, but one of them is frequently repurchased and the other one is not, you can kind of see the difference in lifetime value. It's about $35 for the one on the left, or over $230 for the one on the right. And theoretically, the majority of those repurchases aren't clicking ads to then purchase, because they'll already see your product in their order history and they can easily get to it, or they're familiar with your brand at that point. And so they're not clicking ads to make those sales. So those are all organic sales, and you're just paying for that first one. And so with brand A, you may want to break even if you're being more aggressive, or you want to be profitable even on your advertising sales. And so you need to target a much lower ACoS per each sale, because the order frequency is much lower. Whereas brand B, you could theoretically have 100% ACoS on that first order, or even a 200% ACoS, because you know that you may lose money on the first 2 sales, but then you have 6 more sales to make up that money later, and it just compounds over time. And also, the more new customers you acquire, it's kind of, I would say the golden rule of Amazon is more sales tends to drive more sales. So if you're spending more upfront to acquire those customers, it's going to help compound and increase your organic rankings and performance in other areas. And so there's kind of a halo effect along with this longer term value that you see.
Yeah, totally. And it's, once you have this insight, you actually strategize, right? Your aggression with ads and acquiring new customers. It's also about the current health of the business and how brands forecast possibly for future fundraising or exits, and again, how that plays back into your strategy.
Yeah, it's like I just mentioned a little bit, the lifetime value revenue kind of compounds over time. And so here we have an example from Amazon's subscribe and save dashboards where it shows the subscription count over time. And you can see last year it actually increased faster, and this year still increasing, but almost flat. And then I've seen some other examples where the subscriber rate is actually decreasing, and knowing what's happening with your subscribers heavily influences your lifetime value. And that then in turn influences kind of your compounding revenue over time. And so if you're a brand that's looking to be acquired in the next 1 to 3 years, it might make sense to invest significantly now in trying to get new subscribers or increase your lifetime value so that 1 to 3 years from now, that just kind of all compounds. And yeah, understanding what direction your subscriptions are going can tell you a lot. And so if they're going up, then maybe you're doing the right things. If they're going down, then you might have a conversion rate issue or a content or a pricing issue that customers are leaving you for someone else. And then that's just going to, again, have a negative compounding effect if you're losing subscribers, because then that's lifetime value that you're losing. And if you're investing more to acquire those customers, but then the lifetime value is shrinking, you're going to start becoming unprofitable pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting how you can, cue this and point maybe some declines in subscriptions to other factors like consumer voice, right? What are they saying about your product? Is it the quality? Is there something else out there in the market that might be winning and convincing them to leave your brand?
Did you have a bad batch and the flavor is off, and so you're getting negative reviews, and now your subscriber rate is decreasing?
For sure. And, LTV's come a long way. I think, we look at where we started years and years ago, it's say 5 years ago, like the metric may have not been easy to access or readily available. And it's a metric that Amazon advertisers and sellers always may have wanted to analyze. Eric, can you give us a little history lesson on where it was and, kind of give us an idea of where it's at today?
Yeah. Amazon is a little bit interesting in that I feel like what tend to be standard kind of marketing or e-commerce or commerce retail metrics take a long time to filter into the Amazon world. It's been interesting to see how Amazon shifts over time in terms of the metrics that are being used. And one example would be tacos versus media efficiency ratio. I remember Prosper Show 2019, tacos was the big talk of the town, and everybody was referencing it, and Techometrics did a talk on it that was super interesting, and it kind of blew everyone's mind. And then later come to find out, oh, that's actually just media efficiency ratio that's been around for decades, and we're just calling it something else and feel like it's new for Amazon. LTV, I think, is similar. 10 years ago when I started, nobody was talking about it with Amazon. 5 years ago, it started to become more in the picture and was something that you had to calculate manually. And before Amazon kind of hid most of the FBA data, it was a lot easier to track. And then they hid most of that data, and then you had to track it through the hashed emails, which Zach will kind of get a little bit into in the next slide. But basically, it was a very manual process, and I would spend a couple hours every month per client updating their LTV and order history to try and figure out how many times is this email address showing up in our orders, so then we can get a rough estimate of what LTV is. And it wasn't super clean data, it wasn't super easy to get. Fast forward to today, and Amazon has a full dashboard for lifetime metrics. There seems like they're coming out with new data and modules around that every couple of months, which is super awesome because they're recognizing, oh, if people have this data, they can actually make better decisions, which leads to more sales, which leads to more money for Amazon. So why should we not just give them more of this data? And I would say the data is still in progress. I don't 100% trust it, as with any Amazon data really, but it's definitely improved a lot. And it seems like it's something that Amazon is recognizing is important to focus on. And then you have other kind of software partners like Kapoq that figured this out a couple of years ago. LTV was one of the huge things that made me want to stick with Kapoq early on, because I was like, you mean to tell me that I can look at this and download it to Excel and it's all there within 10 seconds? And I used to spend 5 hours a month doing this. This is amazing. I think just across the industry with Amazon, it's kind of becoming more in the conversation, but Amazon itself is putting more emphasis on it.
For sure. You think there's businesses out there who are, maybe afraid of where Amazon's taking things and fearful
Mm.
that they want them to spend more and this and that. Well, at the same time, if brands can recognize that there is repeatable business, that consumers come to Amazon to purchase their products, there's value in, right, maintaining a presence and selling on the marketplace. And I think a tool like the customer loyalty analytics they rolled out is just one step to keep people around, but also expose them to the information that is relevant. Of course, we've had this for a while. Going back to your point, you could have gathered this data the old way, which people still do apparently. You mentioned hashed email addresses. What is the way to gather this data manually?
Yeah, and I'm happy to delve into that. I know Eric was talking about the 5 hours, and I've definitely talked to a lot of people who are in a similar boat, and kind of doing these things manually can be frustrating, time consuming, especially if you're trying to do things in Excel and it just keeps freezing. So we definitely try to make the process as easy as possible with Kapoq. And we're actually pinging the API to pull these reports in and then summarizing them. And you can just click a button, export them in Excel. So there's definitely automation and efficiencies with how you can approach this process. There are users that download these reports, put them in Excel. I think Eric and I were talking maybe like 50 or 60,000. You might start hitting some trouble. We've even had cases where clients, they have more data than Excel allows as far as rows. The row limit in Excel is 2 to the 20th, which is a little over 1 million. And I mean, good luck trying to use Excel to do any kind of interesting analysis. You're going to probably have a bad day if you try to do that. And so the good news is, and Shelby was kind of talking about this, things have come a very long way with LTV. And so there are a lot of different angles that you can go as far as, do you want to rely on Amazon's metrics and use the reporting that they have related to LTV? Do you want to use a tool like Kapoq? AMC has some LTV related solutions. And then also, could you maybe use this, but potentially store it in a database as opposed to doing Excel-based computation? So we've seen so many different ways that people can do really interesting analysis of LTV. And so the old way and downloading it is kind of a starting point, but there's been a lot of progress and a lot of different ways that you can slice and dice this data. And so those are kind of just some different considerations for how you could approach it.
Yeah, I love the story about the customer downloading the data and having trouble or like exceeding their amount of rows in Excel. Like that is the problem you want to have, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. If you have too many orders, that's
Yeah.
always good news. But yeah, it's a two-edged sword, and you hit some computational challenges as well. But there are definitely solutions to help in that case.
I think this is a great time. We do have a poll that we want to bring to light. So let's get that up and running. And here it is. Everyone, love you to engage with this poll. Really just basic question, how regularly do you use LTV data when making decisions? We can kind of give a little recap once everyone's had a chance to provide their input and summarize like where you all kind of fall in line. And we'll leave this open for maybe a minute. And maybe worth talking about real quick while we're on the ways of like calculating LTV, Zach. This data is for sellers today, right? It's the hashed email address found within the fulfilled shipment report. You mentioned AMC for vendors, right? I think there's ways where you can calculate it, but I think at the core, we all are familiar with the fact that primarily the use case that we've seen, in the more recent periods, historical periods, is ways of analyzing for sellers. So
Yep.
Vendors, you're not
That's
alone.
exactly right.
Yeah, there's ways for vendors to also get this. We can talk more about that. All right. So how about, hopefully you've had a chance for everyone to chime in here. We will cue the wrap up.
I see a question from Chad Davis. Can you distinguish subscribe and save orders and regular orders? He's wondering if customers are coming back to his brand outside of the ones who are coming back automatically by a subscribe and save. And Zach, you might be able to answer that a little more clearly. I think you could kind of look at your repeat customer rates and see how many customers are repeating purchase, and then compare that to how many subscribers you have for that same time frame, and figure that out. And then,
Yeah, it's a good
yeah,
question. I think you're on the right track there. We separate out our LTV and subscribe and save related reporting in Kapoq. Basically, this old way screen that we have here doesn't necessarily attach it to a subscribe and save order, but you could supplement with the approach that Eric was mentioning, as well as more advanced reporting like AMC you could use to get additional insights. The approach here doesn't tag it specifically to subscribe and save or not, which would be great. There are different angles that you could attack, so that can hopefully helps give some insights for how you could approach that.
Yeah, I think you covered them both. All right, so the poll, real quick, we'll give you insight. So 40% use LTV often, 33 find it hard to access, and 27 don't because they don't understand how to interpret the data. So hopefully the interpretation we'll continue to get to throughout this, webinar today. And obviously it's once you get the data, understand the data, how do you action the data? So let me get us over to this. We cover the basics, like I mentioned, what it is, how it's evolved over the years to be more accessible, and the process to get this data, even if you don't have a tech partner like Kapoq, how to get the data. But now putting this into action, what are some of the practical steps sellers can take to optimize their business for improving LTV? I'll give that over to you, Eric. Give us a little run through of some of these steps that you would think through.
Yeah. Sure. So lifetime value obviously is how many times somebody repurchases your brand or your products. And so the goal here is to increase that as much as possible. And the various levers you can pull on Amazon, this probably isn't even all of them. It's just kind of a few of the main ones. But your detail page content is obviously kind of the main thing. That's where people find your product and decide to buy you or not. But having stuff in your A+ content, as an example, highlighting other products in your catalog, or your above the fold images, having pictures of group shots with multiple products in your catalog just to increase that exposure to the other products you have. Both of those can help increase LTV and hopefully AOV as well, because people are seeing, oh, I'm buying this product from them. They also have these other products that I might be interested in. Similar with storefront and Amazon posts, the storefront is a great place to highlight all of your other products and offerings and encourage people to look at more of your catalog versus just the first thing they found. Obviously, you can advertise your storefront as well. And so you could be driving a lot more customers to your store than what can happen organically. Typically see brands that are using their stores well and advertising them drive 20 to 25% of their revenue through their storefront, which is awesome because the storefront, like I said, allows them to see all the other products in your catalog and just makes it that much more likely that they're going to remember you the next time they need that product or a similar product. It's kind of the thing for everything on Amazon, but messing around with your promotional pricings or coupons that you're running to try to incentivize that first purchase. And I believe we'll get into that a little bit more later as well. If you have a strong LTV, then offering a bigger discount up front to capture that customer can also just help increase the traffic that you're driving to your listings, and then thereby increase exposure to your brand in general. Virtual bundles and variations. Virtual bundles are great because it doesn't take any extra warehouse time or space on your side. And how Amazon merchandises those is the main product in the virtual bundle will have the virtual bundle show up on its detail page, like pretty close to the top. I think it's actually above where the natural variations show up. So very prominent right up at the top. And then it shows people like, oh, here are accessories that go with this product, or here are related products this brand has that I might also be interested in. And so you can use that space on your detail page to increase your AOV and LTV, maybe not necessarily directly with those, but indirectly in the sense that it's going to increase your brand awareness and the stickiness of your brand in that person's mind, because they're going to recognize you have a lot more products than just one good one.
Yeah. Content at the core is very essential, and exposing customers to the multitude of products within your catalog and like wrapping things up with virtual bundles, increasing basket size is a fun way that really takes low effort and increases that AOV.
Videos, I didn't mention that, but you can have 5 branded videos above the fold and 5 UGC videos. So you can basically have 10 videos above the fold, and they can be strictly branded, where it's just talking about your brand story or your entire product line, or they can be product specific, like an unboxing video or whatever. But videos can be a great way to show, like, here's all the accessories and how you use them with our product, or here's the related products. So skincare routines, like you can show each of those and have that video on every detail page. So then it's just increasing that exposure to the rest of your brand and catalog. And if you aren't then using your detail page to sell the rest of your catalog, they're probably not going to see the rest of your catalog. And so if you have a hero product, like use every bit of space on that listing you can to expose them to the rest of your brand so that they're more likely to become a longer term customer.
For sure. Complementary items in your catalog, ways to upsell, cross-sell. These are great practical steps, and I feel like there's more beyond just the PDP on simply optimizing content to convey value. Eric, beyond the content, what other actions have you found helps drive repeat purchase?
Yeah, so the most obvious lever to pull for lifetime value is subscribe and save, because then it locks them in, and a certain percent of people will subscribe to get that first discount and then cancel. But if your brand is doing well, if you have a good product and good reviews, if somebody likes the product, then they're going to most likely keep repurchasing the same thing. And so getting them on subscribe and save is the best way to do that, because then there's no thought involved in them coming back and being like, what brand was it? Was it this person? What, maybe I have a reseller issue and they end up purchasing from a reseller instead of me. But if you can incentivize them to just subscribe and save from the outset, then you get a much more longer term customer out of them. And so having any discount on subscribe and save increases the number of subscribers you'll get. And then layering on top of that, subscribe and save coupons definitely helps as well. And then some of the other stuff, if you're brand registered, brand tailored promotions. I actually did a post on this yesterday, reposting. Someone else from another agency had some good insights on some updates on this, but brand tailored promotions have been around for maybe 18, 24 months or something, but they just got a big upgrade recently where you can actually specify which ASINs you want to run a promotion on now. Previously, the brand tailored promotions, you just had to run it on your whole catalog, which wasn't always the best. But now you can specify ASINs, and then brand tailored promotions allow you to target specifically different customer segments. So you can target people who viewed your product but didn't purchase, or somebody who added your product to their cart but then didn't purchase it. But you can also re-engage past customers. So if you have people that didn't sign up for subscribe and save and you want to incentivize them to come back and purchase, you can set up a brand tailored promotion, offer them 20% off their next purchase. Amazon will email or set it up on the detail page, let the customer know that they have a brand tailored promotion offered to them. And then that incentivizes them to come back and make a purchase from your brand again. And so these things are also levers, basically offering discounts to get people to keep purchasing your products. Ideally, you don't have to offer a heavy discount every single purchase. If you're offering 5% subscribe and save long term, that's usually something people can handle if you're not paying for ads for those additional sales. Or if you're offering 25% off the first purchase and you're confident they'll purchase 4 more times, again, something worth doing on the front end to capture that customer.
Yeah, for sure. Upfront, and then continual. Brand tailored promotions are so powerful great additions. As an agency owner and operator, Eric, what have you seen as like a missed opportunity for brands?
Of this subscribe and save coupons, brand tailored promotions. I think for a lot of people in this webinar probably understand you've been managing Amazon for at least some length of time, or you're part of an agency or an agency owner as well. So you get that Amazon is constantly evolving and constantly coming out with new features. And if you don't have somebody in your company that is focused on it day to day, there's a lot of stuff that you're going to miss. And so brand tailored promotions, like Amazon, I think, announced it in their news feed, if you keep tabs on that, which a lot of people don't. And then the other way to find it is like if you're just kind of exploring your different brand or promotion options or whatever, and you come across and you're like, oh, what's this? But I think there's a number of features like that within Amazon. Subscribe and save coupons. So everybody knows you can offer a discount on subscribe and save, but they don't necessarily know that you can set up a coupon that only applies to a subscription order. And so if you're not implementing those things, there's missed opportunity for acquiring new customers for your brand that can then offer better lifetime value. And then the way that brands limit their growth, like this slide is talking about, is under investing in ads. So if you have a really strong lifetime value, but you want to target a 20% ACoS so that you're profitable on that first sale, then you're really limiting your growth, because that 20% ACoS, if they're going to purchase 5 more times without paying for ads, then that 20% ACoS is technically like a 5% lifetime ACoS. And so if you're only investing 5% lifetime to get that customer, then you're really under investing. And if instead you were investing 50% to get that first customer, you're going to be able to show your ads to a lot more potential customers. And if you can capture those, then you make up for it on the back end. Understanding your LTV will help you guide your advertising strategy and make sure that there's a longer term view in mind versus just this week or this month looking at each specific sale, but looking long term. How is this going to impact me 6 months from now? I need to start making those decisions and changing things right now.
That's great. Yeah. And I think, Eric, you have a good example. We did receive a question of, right, the role customer retention strategies, loyalty programs, subscribe and save, plays an increasing order frequency. I think this is a good segue to give us an example of like a client you've worked with, and when you think everything's going well, like, is there opportunity still?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this picture is not the brand I was working with. I recently was working with a pet brand, and we tied them into Kapoq and started looking at their LTV data and saw that their repeat customer rate was super high. Their average reorder frequency was super high, 40% for the first 6 times. For the second, their repeat customers purchased 3 times more than their single purchase customers. And so they had a lot of opportunity with lifetime value and repeat customers. This was partly because it's basically like a treat holder, and then they also make the treats to go with the treat holder. And so if they can get somebody to purchase their treat holder, then they're much more likely to get them to purchase the subsequent treats, which then they're going to repurchase every month. And so digging into that, we started looking at, okay, what are they doing to actually increase their lifetime value or increase their subscribers? So basically what we found was they were offering a subscribe and save discount, but they weren't offering any coupon or incentive beyond that to subscribe. And so we basically recommended set up a subscribe and save coupon and then use that to incentivize that first kind of subscription. And what you can do with the new data that Amazon provides, or with Kapoq, you can track how many new subscriptions you have week over week. And so we were able to look at, here's their average additional subscribers by week. So we looked at the past like 18 months, how many do they add on average every week? And then we added the coupon, ran that for a couple of weeks, and then we could look at that data and compare, okay, their average number was 100 new subscribers every week, and now they're adding 120 new subscribers every week. And so we were able to see, by adding this subscribe and save coupon, they actually increased their subscriber rate substantially, which then, like we talked about earlier, just compounds their revenue over time. And so what we saw with them specifically, we saw a 40% increase actually in new subscribers the first week of running that coupon. And then those repeat purchasers on average were 5 or more times. This was actually a newer brand, had been on Amazon for about a little over a year and a half. And so their LTV data is going to continue to improve over time as they have their product available for longer. And so I think now they're up to like an average repurchase of like 6.2 or 6.5, and it's just continuing to grow because dogs want treats every month. So why would they stop buying them if their dog likes the treat? We have a little bit of a math example of when you're looking at your LTV data, here's how you can kind of determine how much you're willing to invest to get those new subscribers. If the average order value is $30 and let's say you add a coupon to it, which increases your new subscriber rate by 10%. I call that 100 orders because it makes the math easier in this case, but you can figure out what that is. Maybe 10% is 10 new subscribers for you, or maybe it's 1,000 new subscribers if you're a really big brand. But then if you know your LTV is 6 orders, then the math is pretty simple. You take $30 AOV times 100 orders, which is the new subscribers you had over what your previous rate would have been, times 6 for the number of orders, and you're looking at 18,000 in incremental revenue just from adding on a coupon that increased your new subscriber rate. And there's obviously more math to be done in terms of figuring out the exact profitability and how you have to factor that into the first order, but not the next 5. And so this is the gross look, not the net look in terms of profit, but it gives you an idea that if you can add 10% more subscribers with a coupon than you were adding without the coupon, that compounds dramatically. And then there's the added halo effect of you're driving more sales. So Amazon's more likely to show you higher in the search results, which then leads to more organic sales. And then if you think about that, it's as long as you keep running that subscribe and save coupon, you'll continue to add new subscribers faster than you were before. And so in the first month, maybe you added 100 over what you did before, but then in the second month, if you add another 100, you've now added 200 more than you would have had before. Third month, you're now at 300 more than you would have had before.
For sure. It's funny how just adding a coupon and a discount to incentivize that first subscription can work wonders. And in the past, like you wouldn't have been able to kind of track and measure this, but Amazon has recently rolled out their subscribe and save dashboard. What stood out to you about some of the metrics here? I think you touched on a few of them, but like one maybe in particular that you have been looking at.
There's a couple that I really like from there.
Okay, yeah, a few. Give us
yeah. So subscriber retention, it shows you how many subscribers you're retaining after 30 days and after 90 days. And what I like about that is that again helps inform how much you're willing to discount to get a subscriber. So in this example, let's say it looks like it's about 90% retention after 30 days. So if you get 100 subscribers per month, you're going to have 90 of those in month 2. So you're losing 10%. But if I can add a coupon that takes it from 100 new subscribers to 120, then I lose 10% of that, or maybe I lose a few more. I can still end up higher than I was without the coupon. And then at 90 days, looks like it's about 75% retention. So you lose a quarter of your subscribers after 90 days. It would be helpful to benchmark this. If you're an agency, look at all of your brands and see what kind of the average retention rate looks like. If you're a brand, maybe ask Kapoq and they can share, or find some friends in the space, or ask me and I'll share some information on what kind of the benchmark looks like. But if you're losing 25% of your subscribers after 90 days, maybe that's normal, or maybe that's a little bit too high and you need to figure out, like, are they just trying out the product and they get the discount initially and then they cancel? Or is there something that they don't like the product, or maybe it's a product that you get results in 90 days and then don't need it anymore, or whatever? Kind of figure it out based on your own brand and what products you offer, what makes sense. But knowing this data is super helpful for making decisions about how much you want to invest on the front end to acquire subscribers. The other one I like is just the left of it, the pie chart there, is sales by deliveries for the trailing 12 months. The light blue is subscriptions with 2 or more deliveries. And then the darker color is canceled subscriptions after 1 delivery. And then the cream, whatever color that is active subscriptions with 1 delivery. So basically, they've had 1 delivery and they're still active. They've had 2 or more deliveries and they're still active, or they canceled after 1 delivery. You want the blue to be as big as possible. And so looking at your review data, sentiment data, figure out like how can we keep customers longer. But then if the canceled after one delivery is really high, then maybe you're in a category where people just try one of everything, like nootropics, like brain supplements. Those tend to not have great reviews. And so people just kind of try everything until they find one that works for them. And maybe you're in that space. So you have a really high cancellation rate after the first because people are just trying to get that discount to try it out and then move on. Looking at this data can kind of help make those decisions for you of maybe I invest less to get a subscriber because they're more likely to cancel. But on the flip side, maybe I develop a sample pack and it's like a 10-day sample size that costs a third of what 30-day size costs me. But customers then purchase that, and maybe that then becomes like your hero SKU and gets people into the brand, and then they come back later and subscribe to your 30-day or whatever. So this data can really tell you a lot of different things strategically about how you should be approaching Amazon and your product line or customer retention, customer satisfaction, all of that. And this is data that Amazon is starting to give us, and you can filter it by specific date ranges or look at different granularity like day, month, week, so you can see how things are trending over time in different ways.
For sure. I think there's always going to be customers gaming the system a little bit, maybe subscribing and falling off, but this is great insight to like be able to track that more closely and measure it. Zach, we have some good data too that, want to talk to you about powerful market insights. Walk us through some of what you see beyond the surface.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways that you can slice and dice the data. I just threw in some examples here, and so there are many more, but just wanted to mention some other ways that you could look at LTV to unlock some insights. And so like LTV by ASIN is one example. I think particularly for sellers with variety or trial packs, those can often be very interesting to look at. They can often be the first touch point that a customer makes with a brand. So that could be that first ASIN that they get introduced to, and then it's generating a lot of LTV for the brand. So I think being able to look at LTV by ASIN, monitor it, that's really important and can be really interesting. Customer acquisition cost and LTV. So CAC is customer acquisition cost. That's the cost that a business incurs to gain a new customer. And so I think it's helpful to look at the ratio, also look how it trends over time. So for example, you could look month over month and see how does customer acquisition cost compare to LTV over time. You could look at how many months until break even. That's a metric that I know some people look at for CAC versus LTV. And so that's definitely something to keep an eye on as well. Average number of days, that's kind of just like a quick metric that I like to look at for how many days between your first and second purchase, how many days between your second and third purchase with a brand. So, maybe how often are people purchasing their dog treats, or is it some kind of supplement? Maybe you have a supplement with a 30 or a 90-day supply, and you could look at these numbers and see if they make sense. And that can be a very interesting metric to keep your eye on, as well as repeat average number of purchases. I know Eric was looking at that. And so that's another one to keep your eye on. And then I didn't even put it on here, but there also is AMC and lots of insights that you could unlock with AMC. I know we talked about Chad's question earlier on in the call. And so there are even more insights that you can unlock with AMC. And then last bullet point on here for LTV by product category. There's more on that on the next slide. Shelby, I don't know if you can hop on over to the next slide. And I know there's a lot of data here. I work in data science, so I find these kinds of studies really interesting. And we did an internal study at Kapoq to look at LTV by product category. And so just wanted to share those results and kind of look at some insights here. And so you can hopefully see the top 5 categories: grocery, office products, beauty, pet products, health and beauty, but also things like beauty, health and beauty, grocery. A lot of these not too surprising. And so a lot of times things like consumable products that get used over and over again, those can kind of be candidates where you might often see a higher LTV. So something like a treat, a can of pet food, maybe it's a bottle of moisturizer or a bag of coffee or a supplement. Those can often be products that have high LTV. And then there are products on the other end of the spectrum that might have lower LTV. Maybe there's a cheap toy you buy that goes viral and loses popularity. So there's toys down there. And then luggage, maybe you buy your piece of luggage And, some people could purchase another, but maybe for a good proportion of people, maybe that gets them by and they have their carry-on. Hopefully that works for a while when they go to the airport. So interesting to look at how this varies by product category. I think it's interesting because there's not really just one perfect number or benchmark that you can use for LTV. It's going to really vary by brand. What are the goals of the brand? What are the product categories? And so just kind of an interesting study that we did that I wanted to share. And so that's just a little bit kind of overview of some additional insights. And I think that kind of wraps up that piece. And then I think, Shelby, we had Q4 insights coming up next. I know we only have a little bit left, so I went through those kind of quickly.
Yeah, with the time in general, we have a lot to cover today. Let's discuss how to evaluate whether discounting strategies make sense for your brand. And Eric, for mine, like specific considerations brands should think about before setting aggressive subscribe and save coupons discounts.
Yeah, kind of a major consideration is typically what we see with tentpole events like Prime Day or fall big deal days, or even Black Friday, Cyber Monday week. I guess it's 12 days now. What we tend to see is that people are either buying more gifts or they're kind of caught up in the shopping mode and they make a lot of purchases and then later decide either to return or cancel subscriptions because they decide they don't want it or the person they gifted it to didn't want it. And so what you typically see is higher return rates and higher subscription cancellations after these event days or holidays. Conversion rate tends to be way higher. The amount of traffic you're getting is way higher. So you can drive significantly more sales, but you have to balance your promotional strategy with an understanding that if you typically see 10% drop off of subscribers after 30 days around a tentpole event, that may actually be more like 20% drop off. And so you kind of have to factor that in and balance that. And thankfully, like Amazon's new dashboards gives you some of that data. I think you can get some from Kapoq as well. But unfortunately, there isn't any way currently, Kapoq may be working on this, hint, hint, to specify like a day or a couple of days to look at that cohort of subscribers. So if I want to look at July Prime Day, day 1 and day 2, just those orders that subscribed, what's their lifetime value compared to the rest of a non-holiday or a non-event day. And there's some issues with anonymity requirements and you can't get too granular, but there may be a way to look at specifically just subscribers and lifetime value versus like none of the other data related to it. But that would be very helpful to know. So then you can adjust your strategy of maybe I don't do a 30% discount, I just do a 20% discount, which will still increase sales, increase conversion, but I won't be losing as much because I know I'm not going to retain as many of these subscribers down the line. And so that's definitely a big consideration. And then, yeah, since you can't get as granular as like a single day's customers and how that plays out, you can maybe look at weeks or at least monthly, and then you can just kind of track top line revenue after that point and see for the next couple of months, like we typically see on a normal month when we're adding new subscribers, or does it kind of grow and then plateau because a bunch of those new subscribers are dropping off now? And so there's kind of maybe some hacky ways to get at it, but it's more just consideration that returns and subscription cancellations will probably be higher after these events. And so just make sure you're factoring that in and not just giving away everything and losing money around the holidays.
For sure.
Yeah.
Eric, take us home. What are the main points brands should understand about LTV? And what are ways to optimize it? And what data do they need to easily have accessible to measure whether it's working? Summarizing the main takeaways would be real helpful.
Yeah, I think main takeaways is figure out what your LTV is in the first place. And maybe you know that, maybe you don't, but that's obviously the first step. And then just factoring it into your overall strategy, like how does this affect your overall business? Do you want more subscribers? Do you want to increase LTV? I think one consideration when we were looking at the categories is you may feel like you're not in space that has a strong LTV. So I worked for a company that sold fish finders, and their repurchase rate was once every 5 years. And so you may feel like LTV doesn't matter because if I'm profitable on this product sale, then it doesn't matter what happens 5 years from now. That's someone else's problem. But how it can affect it is if you know your lifetime value, like repurchase rate is once every 5 years, then you should be building that email list and re-engaging those customers at 4.5 years to make sure they come back and buy your brand and don't go to a competitor. So there's still a consideration there, though it's a much longer term view. And so it doesn't just have to be like a CPG or a beauty brand that LTV is relevant for. And then, yeah, understanding LTV of Amazon versus D2C is important. LTV on D2C tends to be higher. Your customer acquisition costs also tends to be higher on D2C. And so balancing those, if my customer acquisition cost is a fifth on Amazon what it is on D2C, and my LTV is only 20% lower, then I'm going to be investing way more into Amazon to get those new customers because it's going to grow the business more. And then, yeah, testing, subscribe and save, discounts, coupons, find that sweet spot. And then somebody did ask about the pet brand. Would I be more likely to run subscribe and save coupon during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or run a lightning deal or a best deal? And that's a great question. Probably the coupon because you're more likely to then capture the subscription. But the lightning deal, best deal, like you could stack them because the lightning deal, best deal is going to get a lot more visibility around Amazon in terms of merchandising. But if you stack them, then if you can handle that level of discount, you can get the extra visibility and incentivize the subscribers. If you can't stack them, then it's kind of what's your short and long-term goals? Are you trying to be acquired in 3 months? So you need high revenue right now, then go for a best deal. If you're trying to build a long-term sustainable business, then I'd say subscribe and save coupon is going to be the better bet.
Yeah, great nuggets all around. There's another one that I'm seeing. What LTV use cases would require AMC? I know we covered a bit about this, but Zach, shed a little light on like beyond or what's available within Amazon through AMC. You can give us like insights on how LTV can be calculated.
Yeah, I'm happy to dive into that. And so, yeah, you can definitely unlock some additional insights specifically with AMC related to LTV. I think one that kind of comes top of mind right away is vendor LTV. Chad was asking about subscribe and save. And so you can do some interesting analysis there as well. And then also with respect to tentpole events too. And so AMC, it does allow you can basically customize whatever queries you want to run to really get some customized insights. And so if you're looking for something specifically related to vendor LTV or subscribe and save or tentpole events in specific date ranges, then that can often be kind of a very helpful tool to go towards.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't know if there are other questions. Feel free to drop them in here. We can hang tight for another minute. And if not, we covered a lot of ground today. So we hope this has been fruitful. All the attendees, Eric, Zach, thank you so much for being here and sharing so much knowledge with us. We truly hope, again, like this has been very valuable for everyone attending. The materials from today's session will be downloadable. Did we get a question?
We got a good question.
Oh, we did. Well, hang tight. We'll call it a wrap. Will Kapoq offer their famous jungle shirt for the LTV customers? You ask, you receive. So we can talk to the powers that be. We'll get those made. But that's a fun one. Yeah, Zach's wearing the Tiger Time and showing it off.
I should also shout out, we're often at a lot of the big conferences, and sometimes we might be giving out free shirts. So that could be a good, easy way to grab one.
Yeah, meet us wherever we are and you'll get one. That said, yeah, there's fun ways of getting in touch with us, of course. If you want to learn more about Kapoq, you can go to our website. You can reach out to me directly, Zach directly. It's our first name, Shelby at kapoq.com, Zach at Kapoq. And Eric, tell the people how you can be reached as well.
Yeah, Eric at WorkshopAmz, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to message me if you have more questions about LTV. Happy to talk about it or hop on a call and dive into stuff. Thanks, admin. Thanks, everybody. Again, thanks to those that stayed late. I know we went a little bit over, but just trying to cram a lot of information into a short webinar. So appreciate people that stayed long as well.
And if you need more of this material and a recap, you can send it out and share it. We'll have a recording, we'll have some highlights, and yeah, hope this was a great session. We'll be doing more of these soon and look forward to seeing you all there. But thanks again. Hope you have a great day.